Good afternoon. Welcome to 30 Frames a Second. I'm your host, Greg Lassiter. We have a great show for you today, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Born in Harlem, in New York City, in Harlem Hospital. I had a number of women in my family who were educators, and so I spent good time in Philadelphia and introduced to culture there. Of course, I went to the Philadelphia Museum a lot, and cultural things, on the steps of the Philadelphia Museum. A lot of, I wasn't allowed to watch television. and my aunt was a school teacher, and she always had art materials in her closet. So I always had plenty of work and paper and materials to occupy my time. And that's what I did. I started drawing, and I went to the Philadelphia Museum of, not the museum, let me see if I can think of it, settlement school. Yeah, I went to the settlement school there in Philly and had no idea what I was doing, clay and all this stuff. It was something to do on the weekends. But then again, it stuck, and then when I came back to New York, and in junior high school, we used to have drawing contests, myself and another kid in the class, and I created a portfolio, and it was accepted for Art and Design High School. I went to Art and Design, and then after that I went to the School of Visual Arts, and then the New School for Social Research, and so on. So those are basically my beginnings. And art was always there. My mother was extremely creative. In fact, she told me when I was still in her stomach, she would visit museums and listen to classical music, and still I was perhaps influenced while I was still while during her pregnancy. And I would say my family largely would cultural. I again went to concerts in Philadelphia, and art museums and so forth. So I had that pretty good background, except my aunt, who was the matriarch of the family, when she realized that I might take this on as a career, she said, "Oh no, artists don't become famous until they're dead, and so you got to figure out something to do." So I ended up taking a slight detour and going into advertising. So I had an advertising background. I was on Madison Avenue, doing paste-up mechanicals and so on and so forth, which actually paid for my first art studio. So that worked out. But yeah, if you choose art as a career, then sometimes a flag will go up and it might say, I don't know, maybe you want to have something to fall back on. And it's not easy. An art life isn't easy, except you have a great deal of freedom. But, the money's not always there. So I think there is something to that. And there certainly wasn't a road, a path for black artists at the time. It wasn't until I started making a lot of money and enough money to get my first studio in Chinatown. And then everything changed from that point. I got a lot of aluminum material from Alcoa, and I started making wall constructions and sculpture, reflective sculpture, that I painted on. And I was again immersed in culture, Kemet, and other cultures. So that was incorporated into the early work as well. The art world is said to be made up of many different villages. You know, you have a community art scene, you have a mainstream art scene, you have, you know, all sorts of things in between. So yeah, the art world is complex, and a lot of it has to do with monetary interest. In mainstream art world is where the money is, and the community, there's a different kind of commitment. If you choose to stay in the community, you know you're probably not going to make, you know, the kind of money that other artists make. But then that becomes a choice sometimes, and sometimes not a choice.
Welcome back to 30 Frames a Second. Who do I have with me, as always? The great, the man, the myth, the legend. Nat Wood, welcome.
What's up, brother?
What's
How
up,
you doing?
brother? That is a great piece. Algernon Miller.
Right.
Guys, let you know, Nat composed every week, I want to say this, the soundtrack to our show is the soundtrack to our life. He does it himself. Algernon Miller is a great artist.
He really is.
I wasn't familiar before this.
He really is.
He's almost an impressionist.
He is. He's very strong. He's very cultural in what he does. If you were listening, you heard references to Kemet. You know,
right.
So he even mentions in his art. There's a lot of stuff I shot. You know,
right.
and I focused in on showing you the art. And telling his story as opposed to him telling the motivation behind each piece, which I also shot maybe sometime in the future. I'll show it in a little more detail. But he makes references to jazz music. He makes references to guys like Sun Ra, who introduced Moog and synthesizers to jazz music. You know, he was like the George Clinton of jazz before there was a George Clinton of cosmic slop.
Which is a deep cut, mind you.
Well, Clinton surrounded himself with tremendous musicians. Just like Sun Ra, and a lot of his outfit choices are a direct reflection of Sun Ra. I know he had to be aware of Sun Ra.
But now, what segues to this, the black culture is so rich and dynamic.
Right.
We've turned out billionaires and millionaires doing slavery.
Right.
And let's talk about some of the millionaires. The first black millionaire, was it Robert Reed Church?
Correct. Memphis.
He's the first guy to own the Black Bank, a savings and loan bank.
A savings and loan. He was the first guy in Memphis, possibly in Tennessee, to own. What was it? Solvent
Savings and Loans or something. Solvent's National Savings or something, like that.
There were a few of them that came up from slavery, and
Mary Pleasant.
Mary Pleasant was amazing. they were bold and whatnot. They didn't just take their money and be silent. Mary Pleasant sent over $55,000 to John Brown.
Right. She was very part of the Underground Railroad as well.
That is correct.
You know?
That is correct. She was nothing like the chicken.
You said
chicken. Well, she wasn't. In order, during slavery. During slavery, at the peak of slavery, coming up to the 1860s, before the 1860s, to fund not just abolitionists but out and out insurrectionists.
Right, absolutely. Because she was from Louisiana.
A black millionaire in Louisiana
who migrated to San Francisco.
Was a fearless thing to do. Fearless thing to do.
She made so much money. She married J.J. Pleasant.
Correct.
J.J. Pleasant.
Correct.
And she passed for white.
Correct.
She passed for white.
Correct.
And then when all things came apart, she changed herself because she was black. She was black.
Right. Well, you couldn't. If you had any black in you,
couldn't say anything.
You know, they use phrases like octoroon and stuff like that. You know, but an octoroon is still a slave. You know,
that's right.
They had different assignments for different slaves.
But you were still a slave.
You're still a slave. Right. You're still not white. You still don't have the status of white person. You have the status of Negro, nigger coon, whatever it is. You know.
But see, that's the thing. We have produced, even during slavery, we produced millionaires.
Right.
But I was shocked that a lot of people don't know about Black Wall Street.
Yeah. What's the brother's name? He put everything in the Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was the most successful black endeavor ever.
Ever. Still today.
Still today. And but we don't have the same quality of
character. Or they don't make them but we made them back then.
Leadership had a different definition than it has today.
But not leadership. Okay, I look at today's people, millenniums, are watered down, if I may, because when we came up, our generation and the generations before us, we progressed.
See, I don't want to get too hard. It's 2020, and as I said, we did some incredible things in 2019. But I have stepped back and I've analyzed many of the moves I made and the positions I took in 2019. Some of them I think were a little harsh based upon circumstance. And my position on millennials, because they are frustrating.
Very much so.
But it's very difficult to get millennials to listen when everything that's being spewed at them is a whole bunch of meaningless words from basically hypocrites. Who did everything they wanted to. And now all of a sudden they got Jesus, you know, and with Jesus comes some epiphany.
So they think.
In point of fact, it's hard to get young people, and young people are facing very, very unique times that older people have most older people have no concept of.
But hold on now, they're facing tougher times, but we faced just as tough. See, we face tougher times.
But I'm not talking about. I'm not talking.
See, they can change
yes
the future.
And no.
We change
yes
the future.
And no. Yes and no. Young people face an isolation that older people didn't face.
Right.
We live in a time where a lot of young people are basically without companionship.
Social skills.
Well, it's impossible for them to have social skills. Listen. I've heard a lot of elderly people give a whole lot of speeches about what young people should and should not be doing sexually.
Right.
It's hard to convince them of that when the father's a whore.
Right.
You know,
right.
never.
You
like I
implement
said,
what you see.
all of this. Right. I don't want to listen to somebody who doesn't put their back into something.
Right,
You're talking at me, but you never practice what you're preaching.
Right. It's hypocritical.
And it's hypocritical. And now you are confronted with a whole bunch of people who have no social skills, no ability to interact.
Right.
That get porn on demand.
They don't have to talk to people forever if they don't want to.
That is correct.
But that has to stop, though.
They don't.
Right.
You can't even walk the street because they're all in their telephone.
Right.
Everything is an app. Human interaction is almost obsolete for a generation that's used to being bugged and photographed, and they can do all of their bullying through the internet. They torture each other. They take pictures. Young girls who like a boy now, and you never know who you're gonna like.
Right.
And before young people were cruel, but they were cruel like in their classroom talking to their male friends.
Right.
Now they are sneaking pictures of girls they had sex with and putting it all over the internet. It's a different time.
Right.
And as far as a generation being a guiding force, not a judgmental force, but a guiding force. It's hard to communicate with the younger generation, especially when they start. First of all, when you're young, you
think you know
you're
everything.
little, and you're just discovering sex, and you're just discovering a world without rules.
Right. But
you add money and prestige to the equation. I didn't want to hear nobody. I was broken. I didn't want to hear nothing.
But that's different,
cute.
Nat. That's different because that's why we're producing. That's why life is producing these serial killers, these guys that are shooting up, because there's no interaction. Parents, I personally think a parent should have at least a day where their kid's totally unplugged.
I also think that when I was talking to Al Miller, and we just shot that Saturday. Saturday was the last day of the show. One of the questions I posed to him was about his ability to learn different things.
Right.
Art, and math. He said he wasn't living up to expectations in the art world, and he went into advertising, made money in advertising, came back to what he loved, but he still knew both of those things.
Right.
And my comment to him was that he grew up privileged. Now, most people, when I say they grew up privileged, and I know a few people who grew up privileged, the first thing they would tell me is like, no, my mother was poor. My parents were poor. They didn't have money. But that's not what I mean by privilege.
Right.
By privilege, I mean you had the benefit of usually two parents who were artists themselves or involved in education themselves,
Right.
who encourage you to learn different things.
Right.
You grew up with the two things that most children want more than anything else in the world.
Right.
A sense of family and love,
Right.
and the ability to learn and produce
Right.
what it is they love
Right.
doing.
But
to me, that's privilege.
That
That's
is privilege.
far more privilege than having money and being restricted in everything you want, and
Right.
and parents who are are absentee and out and out whores themselves.
Right. The key to what Al said was he grew up not watching television.
But that is correct. That is correct.
That is very important.
He also said something that was very significant. That he was exposed to arts.
Right.
While he was still in the womb.
Right.
And
classical music.
And science has started to take the position that babies learn while they're still in their mother. Once
Absolutely.
they reach a certain phase in their development, they actually hear and feel what's going on around them while they're still in their mother.
That's right.
So it's important. It's important. When they say from the cradle to the grave, it's important that children are encouraged to accomplish
But we've
stuff.
lost that. We've lost that.
We really have.
We need to get that back. But it's not now. Nat, I think it's not about mom and dad, because mom and dad has failed. I think, especially in our community, they failed, an epic fail. So now it takes a village to raise.
The village is failing.
But
I mean, if mom and dad is out of control and the children are out of control, and first of all, there is no village.
Right. So village is gone.
When I was growing up, there was indeed a village.
Absolutely.
You were answerable to the whole village.
To the whole entire village.
Now you're not answerable to your own blood
Why
family.
is that? Why is that? Why is that?
Why, Jesus Christ.
Before we go on to other
Christ.
subjects, let's stay on this for a minute. Why is that?
Oh, Jesus Christ. There are so many things that happened between then and now. And each of those things contribute to the state we find ourselves in now. Certainly drugs played a part. There's no getting around that.
But hold on a second.
What I'm saying is there's a combination of things that that came together to create the perfect storm that has brought us to this place.
Who do we blame drugs on? Do we blame it on ourselves, or do we blame it on other people?
I think blame is irrelevant. I think
How so though?
Because we all know the facts.
Right.
We all know that drugs was perpetrated.
Oh, absolutely.
We all know that we were weak and gullible and susceptible. Susceptible for a number of reasons.
Survival.
Well, I think a lot of young people, because drugs were actually the most effective way to destroy
the black family. Destroy the black family.
But it's through the children. It's through the children. And I think a lot of young people were, in effect, running away from home. That's why they gravitated toward the street so much. I think a lot of young people are running away from home now.
Right. Speaking of which, there's what, 18,000 cases of missing children.
Yeah. And that's just from foster care.
That's just from foster care, right?
Just from social services and foster care that are not even being looked for.
Right. So that means that's a segue. If you're not being looked for, no one cares about you. That's where that sex trafficking comes in.
Right. It means that what they're saying is based in fact. They believe that they're all alone in the world, that they have no one to depend on, and in point of fact, they see reality seems to bear out what they're saying.
But that leaves them no hope.
Well, no. They find hope. It's not. Hope is dead. Survivors have faith in themselves.
Right.
However,
right.
what they lack more than anything else is direction.
Right.
But you won't take direction from a fraud.
Right.
And that is why, like I said, 2020, we're taking some new positions.
Right.
That's why last week we opened up with
New York.
New York
Right,
and a new year.
Right,
the music
right,
was
right,
New
right,
Year. The
right.
music
Everything was new.
Right. This year we have an artist who is also an academician.
Right.
And he's talking about his life. We're showing you the art. We're
Right.
showing you the beauty of art.
Right.
That art is not removed from academics. It's
Right.
not removed
Right.
from math.
Right.
You can indeed walk and chew gum.
Right.
You can indeed.
Right. Right.
You know.
Right.
It's not a zero-sum game. As a matter of fact, there is no one who does anything on the level that we do here,
Right.
who is not good at art and
Right.
and science
Right.
and math
Right.
and literature, because
Right.
you have to tell a story.
Right,
you know.
absolutely. And then, just, but simple point of fact, when you were covering the art, most
That is
people,
correct.
most people didn't hear the questions that were asked.
Right.
You told a story.
Right,
You
right.
took you may have shot it off.
Right.
But it comes down to putting it all together.
You have to put it together,
to tell
and it
the story.
has to the
Makes
story
sense.
has to make sense.
Makes sense.
You know, it has a beginning and a middle and an end.
Right.
So, it takes you back and
And it's
forth
visual.
in time, and it's visual.
It's visual.
And it's visual. One of the most important things, because like you said, we add the music ourselves.
right.
So we have to fit the music to what
What
we're
we're talking
doing.
about.
We
And that-
can't just
and
like
that's why I tell people-
helter-skelter put music to it.
Right. Just because you see us sit here one day,
Right,
it
right.
takes us 8 days to do
Oh
one
man,
day.
are you kidding? Are you kidding?
But-
are you kidding?
But
Are
what
you
do we
kidding?
do now? We're fast. We're quickly losing. We're losing this battle in generations. We've lost 2 generations. The millennial generation, we're losing quickly. So when it comes to the future of black and brown,
Fortunately, and I'm kind of fortunate in that I'm surrounded by extraordinary people
Right.
doing extraordinary things. Like I said, in order to get through to a younger generation, you have to ante up.
Yep. That's right.
Most people, like I said before, most people are all tell and no show.
Right. Right.
I'm all show and no tell.
Right.
I am surrounded by a lot of people who are likewise all
Right,
show.
right,
So
right.
I'm around a lot of people who are incredible
Right.
entrepreneurs,
Right.
who are incredible videographers and filmmakers and
Editors
musicians
and-
and editors.
musicians, yeah, right.
That are just like Mary Ellen Pleasant,
Right.
still very, very active in their communities, put everything on the line to get it out there. So it's not just a den of hypocrites.
Right,
It's
right.
people who actually commit to living their life
Right.
the way they preach their life.
Right. Now, question, not to cut you off, but a question. A viewer just asked me, and this is a great question actually, how can we take what we do and put it in a package and show other people? Do you see what I'm saying? Because what we do and the people that surround us are amazing.
That is correct.
I personally
That is
think
correct. That
I
is
am 58
correct.
years old.
That is correct.
And I have a conglomerate of companies, but I have a group of people right here that are better than the 164 people that I have.
I'll be honest with you. I think what I do is amazing.
I do too.
However, I'll be honest with you. I look at the people that I'm surrounded with, and it's all I can do to just keep my little head up in the mix of y'all.
But you're the director though. You're the maestro. You're the maestro though.
I am putting together a package. First, I think that we have grown a lot in the last couple of years.
Oh, yes, we have.
A lot of the things that you are witnessing now, we had omitted. You know,
right.
For a long time, I was somewhat damaged. Like I said, I am all show and no tell.
Right.
I'm not the type of person who talks about as a musician if I ain't making no music. You know, some people always talk about, oh yeah, as a musician. You
can't play a note.
Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But they haven't played. You know, forever.
Right.
So if you're not doing something, it sounds silly to say, I can do this too.
Right.
You know, no, you can't.
No,
you can't do anything, whatever it is holding you back.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be lack of ability.
Right.
But whatever it is, it could be. You moved on to something else.
Right.
Lack of finance does not prevent you from learning or playing.
Right.
But a conscious decision that I will reject this and do something else is that thing that's holding you back from doing this thing.
Right.
So even though you might have ability, something inside of you prevents you from doing this stuff.
Right.
So right at this moment, you can't do it.
Right.
You know, it ain't because you ain't got the fingers.
Right.
It ain't because you ain't got the brain.
Right.
It's something inside of you that prevents you from doing this thing.
But that's what's interesting is because I've heard this for the last, since we've been sitting down, I have people hitting me up on DM and says, how can we package it and not even. They want us to sell it. We're working on it.
We're working on it.
And I know, some people get, I've had a few. Believe it or not, everybody doesn't like us. All right.
And a lot of y'all got a good point.
But the problem is that. With what we do here and all of us doing our other things, some of us, people want instant gratification and it just doesn't happen that fast.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've had a guy come to me, he's like, oh, Greg, you know what? Why don't you and Nat implement a mentorship program for kids? Well, that's all fine and well, and that's good because we have the outlet to do it. But we're only a team. We can't do everything.
And also, the only thing that you've added to the equation is the word program.
Right.
Because in point of fact, we've had scores throughout the years of young people who have learned from us, studied with us, that we've taught. No one has ever given us a dime.
Right.
That's
right.
We have not asked for anything.
Nope.
There's a whole lot of people who have all sorts of lucrative jobs now who started off with kids that came through us and are doing extremely well.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we have had a few adults. Who have come through here pretty much shattered.
Did we put them together?
And have gotten stronger, redoubled their efforts, and have gone out to conquer the world.
Absolutely. But you know what? I thought that was a good question. I hope we answered your question.
That is a great question. That is a great question.
I think, guys, you know what? All I can say is just keep watching us. Keep hitting me and that up on the DM and let us know what you want or what you want to talk about, and we'll try to cover it.
Right.
Now, let's talk about your president.
You dirty dog.
Who took the credit for Ethiopian Prime Minister Amin. Said Amin, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, got the Nobel Peace Prize.
Because of him.
Because of him.
Yeah.
But what happened was,
he's
Trump,
a liar.
Trump.
But he lies to himself and he believes
it. He believes his own hype.
Right.
But what happened was Trump was at a rally in Ohio.
Yeah.
And all Trump did was call the prime minister to see if he wanted help negotiating a dam that runs through the Nile.
Right.
And the prime minister said no.
Right.
But the prime minister went on to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
And Trump took credit for it.
Donald Trump is a very unique individual. But Donald Trump is actually good because we are in, as I said, times of extreme confrontation.
Right.
And a lot of decisions have to be made immediately.
Right.
You know, we know
good or bad.
Good or bad. We don't have the luxury of laying this one out.
Right.
We are on the verge of losing our homes. Right. They passed a law. they passed a law for undocumented immigrants in New York. The state passed a law that they could
get a driver's license.
Well, not just get a driver's license, that they would be eligible for funds, state funds,
right,
irrespective of the fact that
but you see what
they are undocumented.
But you see what that's all about, right?
But this is the cap. This is the funny part. Apparently, a whole bunch of them, and this just came off the news.
Right,
like I just got this today.
Today, right.
A whole bunch of them got an email from the state that for your education, we have agreed to advance you, give you $0.00.
And all you saw was, I'm getting some dollars.
Right. And you're supposed to fill out some paperwork to find out what's going on.
Right. And
with
come
this
and
0.00
and come and show me where you live. And And all they're doing is gathering you up.
Right.
And deporting you back to your country.
Right.
That is the most insane.
Well, these are the times that we're living in.
There's a town in the South.
Right.
I think it was Mississippi somewhere.
Right.
Where the plants that these undocumented workers were working in, everybody in the whole town was working in this chicken plant.
Right.
And ICE, somehow somebody called ICE.
Right.
ICE came down and wiped out the entire town.
Right.
So these are the times where, guys, I tell you where voting counts.
Right.
This time, when we voted for Obama for 2 years, for 2 terms, this is where it really counts.
But see, voting counts, everything counts.
Right.
Nothing gets on my nerves. Nothing annoys me more, especially some grown-ass man coming and telling me what you don't need to learn or do anymore on account of this can do this and that can do that.
Right.
You're a last place team, you ass bucket. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that you don't need to learn and apply yourself.
You always need to learn.
I know you think that YouTube is some sort of newfangled universal panacea for slick-ass Negroes. They think that's what it is.
It's a false sense of security.
And because of the ability of YouTube to manufacture 20,000 of you birds, from every nook and cranny of the country.
Coming out of the wall. They're coming out of the woodwork.
All saying the same thing.
Right.
And you think that that is your cue to just continue to be the underachiever your ass is on a grander scale.
Right. Just to get likes and views.
This is why young people don't want to hear what you got to say, because you're full of it, man.
Right.
In point of fact, you need to learn.
Right.
We cannot get into prestigious high schools. They lock us out of prestigious high schools because we can't pass their stupid ass tests. How the hell can you've been in America by your own admission? You've been here for 400 years. How the hell can't you pass the damn test?
That right there floors me.
You know.
But yet to say it's still culturally biased. But my thing is, I don't care.
Remember Al Miller said that while he was still in his mama's belly, waiting to be born, she was exposing him to what he had to learn.
Right.
That art, math,
science, classical music.
That when art wasn't panning out, he could then segue into advertising, make a buttload of money, come back and buy his own damn studio in Chinatown, and thus become successful in art. He didn't leave a stone unturned. He didn't say, should I pee in this hand? Should I poop in this one? No. He took the whole damn thing because this is how he was raised.
Right.
If you're constantly telling young people what they don't need to learn, I guarantee you they won't freaking learn it.
Right. They would just close it off.
They close it off.
Right.
They do need to learn. You
Always
do need to
learn.
take your ass to school.
But do you think
people? The white man don't love you.
Right.
You ain't his baby.
Right. But do you think it's like because it's do you think why we're not doing that, the young people are not doing it, is it because they want to take a shortcut or lazy?
Because lazy. Physically, no.
Right.
Physically, no. In terms of putting their back into stuff, I would say no. I would say the school system is not designed to educate them, and they are surrounded by peers that ridicule them every time they make a mistake, and tell them that it is pointless to learn anything, so why bother, because the white man ain't gonna let you do this, ain't gonna let you do that. So between discouragement, I think academically, many of them are defeated before they start.
Checked out already.
They've checked out already, and
but that's what the white man wants, though.
But it is our job.
Right.
It is our job.
Right.
It is silly to expect your competition to groom you to a place where you can compete and succeed against this. I mean, they had actors who were paying upwards of $150,000 to advantage their already advantaged children.
The privileged already needed more money to be privileged.
To be more privileged.
Right.
To be more privileged.
Right.
You know, you're already stinking rich.
Right.
And
I want my kid to get into this
trust fund, baby.
But my kid needs to get into this college.
Right.
Under a scholarship
for
rowing.
Right, for rowing.
And you've never rowed, you don't even know how to swim.
Right. I wasn't even aware you could get a rowing scholarship.
I used to row.
I live in New York. Where you going to row, the Hudson?
Believe it or not, yes. Yeah, I know, right? Believe it or not, there's a rowing in the Hudson.
But it lacks common sense to think that someone is going to advantage you in that way. Even if you during your travels, and they do exist.
Right.
There will be classes where you have extraordinary teachers.
Absolutely.
And those teachers will move heaven and hell, spend out of their own pocket to ensure that you have an advantage going forward.
Right.
But You gotta leave that class sooner or later, and the next class is not gonna be so keen on your advancement. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to learn how to compete and succeed in an adversarial world and an adversarial environment.
Absolutely, and you know what? To add on to that, it used to be just show up.
Right.
Now you have to show up. You have to exceed. We showed up. We were expected to exceed expectations. Now and we had help from the community, our parents. If you don't,
the community.
Yeah, that's it. The community and your parents.
And the community.
Now you have to show up despite or in spite of not having parents to push you. You have to push yourself. You have to. Yes, it's hard, but you have to show up, exceed, and don't stop.
We talked about art and the value of art, and music, and the power of words, the power of lyrics. It is not coincidental. It is not circumstantial that I grew up listening to the music of people like Curtis Mayfield, and the lyrics said things like "We're a winner."
Right.
And now today, young people are growing up in an era when the lyrics say that these niggas are jealous of me, and I got it's a whole different mindset. I grew up and we grew up in the same communities, in
That's
the
exactly
same buildings with the same kind of stuff.
Right, exactly.
The only difference is, and a lot of us didn't make it through. Some of us did, but whoever survived was rooting for the
underdog.
Rooting for each other to be successful and whatnot.
Where did it turn that? Where did it turn where we went?
So many things happened.
But Nat, just off the fact that we went back to not using the N-word. Ever.
Well, I think the beginning. I think the beginning of it was certainly the Black Power movement. The fact that we were becoming so politically aware, so artistically gifted, so intellectually advanced, that the system itself, especially the government, began to fear. J. Edgar Hoover said it. There will never be a black Messiah. We have to eliminate the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X's.
Exactly.
We got to kill them.
A man with too much power.
Right. And it wasn't just them, because they were like lead singers in a supergroup.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, they were Maurice White.
Right.
But,
Earth, Wind and Fire.
But they weren't Earth, Wind and Fire.
Right.
You also had Ella Baker, and they were spitting out all of these superstar college kids. College kids.
Yeah.
The
original rapper. What's the boy from? Winning America.
But the two light-skinned boys that used to be with Martin. What's his name? Julian Bond. And the other guy.
Not Jesse.
No, not
Julian
Jesse.
Bond.
Not Jesse.
Was the guy from Chicago?
Andrew Young. All of those people, Ruby D. All of them come out, but Ruby D was side by side with Ella Baker.
Right.
I mean, so Stokely Carmichael.
Yep.
What's the boy from the Black Panther Party? Huey Newton. Huey Newton studied law and whatnot. Eldridge Cleaver went on to become a college professor and whatnot. these people were all very, very, very active in the movement.
Right.
They were young people. They were college people. They were gifted.
Yeah.
Ruby Dee is extraordinarily gifted.
Right,
All
right.
of these people are extraordinarily gifted young people,
But it
all
turned,
moving
but it
in
turned,
one direction.
It turned. Yeah, it turned. Using the N word was not heard of.
But this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. This group of dynamic, young, talented, educated, forward-thinking black people so scared the powers that be that the response was to bombard the black communities,
Right.
the schools, the children, not the adults,
Right.
not the adults.
That's what they're doing. That's what they do.
Grammar school children. The response was to bombard that generation with heroin.
Heroin, yep.
Heroin. It was so successful that it only stood to reason that when they were confronted with whatever was left
Right.
after this nuclear explosion
Right.
that they wreaked on
Epidemic,
on the black community, whoever was left standing, they had to make sure that their children would not pick up the seeds
Right.
of
Right.
this intellectually gifted class of people raising their children to be these dynamic people.
There's
and
always
they
been
wreaked crack on them. They wreaked
It's genocide.
They wreaked.
It's genocide.
Well,
It was genocide.
It was an attack. It
Yeah,
was right.
it was a genocide.
Genocide don't bother them.
Yeah,
Genocide don't bother them.
But they're trying to
They like
eliminate
genocide.
But they're trying to eliminate from us, like you said, take the young, our
Right,
young.
right,
Let's try
right,
to let's
right,
either
right, right.
disrupt them.
Right.
Let's put something in their mind.
Right.
Keep them
Right.
out of.
Right.
Let's keep them distracted.
Right.
And that's what they did.
Right.
That's where the rap
Right.
the rap came along.
I listen. When I heard the word trap music and
Right, we thought about
I thought it was like they call drums the traps.
Trap, right.
You know, I
a
thought
whole
it was
different
like,
meaning.
It has a completely different meaning.
Right,
The trap is like the trap of drugs.
A whorehouse.
And horse. This
Yeah,
is the trap,
right.
gravitating toward this.
Right. The trap
Trap
house.
music is the music of that
Genre.
Right. You know,
right.
that mindset.
Yeah. That's all they need. That's all they
drug
need.
addiction, drug sales, and that's where
Prostitution.
trap music comes from.
Right, right.
That's where the words trap music come from.
Right.
I had no idea. Apparently, I've gotten so out of touch
You'll be both.
with my own children and grandchildren that I don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
Right. Hey, look, somebody, you said something the other day. I had to look it up. I'm like, what was that?
Right.
But guys,
Right.
look, you know what? We got a few minutes left, but
Wow.
we went by real quick. We didn't even talk about next week, guys. We have Women's Takeover.
Yes, we do. Yes,
and
we
look,
do.
they really take it over.
Yes,
Veronica
they do.
Kidd.
Yes, they
we
do.
got Sheila Berry.
Yeah.
A few other guests that we're going to have. These women are amazing.
Right.
Not only that they have their own roundtable, but they're also our crew.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah, they're technically proficient. They're all very active. Sheila is very active in the church. Veronica has her hands
Sure.
towards being the matriarch and
the executive director
of the People's Film Festival,
and
you
the
know.
Public Media Awards of Excellence. Excuse me.
Lou is all over America and whatnot.
With beauty pageants.
With beauty pageants and she runs mentorship programs
Right.
and whatnot.
Right.
You know. So they are very, very active. They are technologically proficient.
And I can tell you this, not to cut you off. When not saying that, you're never too old to learn.
You're never too old. You're never too young.
Right.
The only thing you are too of to learn is too dead. And actually, I don't know. Somebody might be teaching you something right now.
Right.
They might be cooking you in that heat. There's people who think, that some of y'all is learning the fire is hot.
It's real hot. Okay, I'm gonna say this, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching us. Remember this. You know what? We're here every week. You guys can hit us up in the DM. If you guys don't know what DM is, it's direct message, right? DM.
Direct
message. Okay. Direct messages. Social media. You can reach for us at social media. Greg Lassiter, Nat Wood, and I want to just remember this: shoot for the moon. If you miss, you still among the stars.
I don't remember you said it.
Take us out, baby.
We forgot to talk about Killingly,
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Which is 3 hours. It's a 3-hour drive from New York.
Right.
And they had a mascot that was called Redmond.
Right.
Now, the funny thing about that, the people, the children, the
school
itself wanted to change the name.
Right. They were going to change the name of the mascot. They would call it the Red Hawks.
The Red Hawks.
Right.
But the council, city council, outvoted them 5-4.
They had a vote. They had a vote, and apparently, the people of Killingly. It's so silly.
Killingly, Connecticut.
Silly Connecticut. Was offended that someone would tamper with their
mascot name, which was racist to our native Indians.
Well,
but the sad part about it,
native people took offense to it.
Right.
So whether or not I agree or disagree is irrelevant.
Right.
One thing I have learned is that there used to be a Baltimore Colts. But now there's an Indianapolis Colts.
Well, look at the Redskins.
And the Oakland Raiders have gone by many different names. And we have survived each time.
Right.
There was no such thing as a Carolina football team when I was growing up.
Or a Tennessee football team.
Or Tennessee. I thought that was preposterous.
Right.
They got little one-horse towns in the NBA that I never even knew existed.
Charlotte.
Right, Charlotte, Utah. I'm like,
Utah.
They sell basketballs in Utah.
But got me with Charlotte, which the Charlotte was owned by a black.
Life goes on.
Yep.
People still root for the home team, no matter what you call it.
Right.
When the Baltimore Colts became the Indiana Colts, Baltimore stopped rooting for them.
Right. Became the Ravens. Right. Became the Ravens.
And started rooting for the Ravens.
Right.
Life goes on.
Right.
But there are a lot of people who just cling
just because
because they are comfortable with the domination of other people and the complete disregard for how people are affected by that domination and what they say and what they do.
And do know this, you cannot stop change.
You can't stop change. You can't stop change.
Guys,
I don't know why you'd want to.
Guys, it's been real. Look at my socks today, man. I love my socks. Look at this.
I know. I used to find some out. Find you.
Look, you got 40 seconds.
I just want to thank you for tuning in. Like I said, next week, like he said, next week is Women's Takeover. As always, it's going to be a dynamic show. God bless you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you guys. We're out of here.
Out.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, brother. Oh, we still got like...
We got 20 seconds.
I ain't got no clock on mine. Mine is dark as hell. So I'm depending on you, Patches.
We got about 15 seconds. We got about 10 seconds.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching us. We're out of here. Peace. Deuce.
Yeah, what he said over and over and
Shoot
over.
for the moon. If you miss, you're still among the stars. We're out of here.
That's right.
Go to black.
Peace.